Have you ever awakened in the morning to discover that you're in a bad mood? The other night I had a horrible night of fretful sleep. I have no idea what the problem was. I'm sure Freud would love to get loose in my mind. All night long I had these terrible dreams. None of them were life-threatening or revealed any deep-seated secrets about my life, so we can avoid the dream analysis. Yet every dream went bad. Either I messed up something in my dream or someone else made mistakes in my dreams that thwarted good intentions by others. All in all, it was a night of nocturnal disappointments. As a result, I woke up in a very negative frame of mind. Let me translate that. I woke up in a bad mood. Bad moods can be brought on by different things and a host of different causes. You can sleep bad, get bad news, have a headache, and the list goes on. So here I was beginning a day in a bad mood. I did not feel good, and I didn't feel like feeling good. Being grouchy and argumentative was my natural disposition for the day. Oh, get off it and quit acting like you've never been in a bad mood. You know you have, and I'm in no mood to listen to you tonight. I'm just kidding. My question today is, what do you do when you're in a bad mood? Do you give in to it? Do you make others pay for it? Do you just ride it out? Or do you decide to let your mood dictate your behavior? There are occasions where people in the Bible were in a foul mood. King Ahab is an example. The Bible says in 1 Kings 21:4, Ahab went back to his palace, sullen and in a foul mood, because Naboth, the Jezreelite, had turned down Ahab's offer. He laid down in his bed, curled up with his face to the wall, and refused to eat. Now that's what I'm talking about. That's a bad mood. The word in Hebrew for bad mood is translated stubborn, resentful, sullen, or unplacable. It's used 3 times in the Bible to describe someone who is so sullen or vexed that they don't want to eat, are very displeased, or have a heavy heart. They want to revolt. I think that just about wraps up and describes how most of us feel when we're in a bad mood. So what do you do when you're in a bad mood? The Bible talks about this in terms of our attitude. God says a lot about our attitudes. We're not to be slaves to our attitude. Paul said we're to have a different attitude in Philippians. In Romans, he talks about giving in to a corrupt attitude. In Colossians, he said that before we knew Christ, we had a hostile attitude. Over and over, Paul tells us to change our attitude. We're instructed to have the attitude of Christ. All these verses make it very clear that as a believer, we don't have to give in to a bad attitude or a bad mood. In other words, we can choose to act right even when we don't feel right. Ezra talks about the Lord filling people with joy to change their attitude. As a result, here's some helpful thoughts about what to do when you find yourself in a bad mood. Number 1, stop and recognize it. Admit that for whatever reason, you're in a bad mood. Confess to God that you've allowed circumstances to affect your attitude. Second, tell God that alone you are powerless to overcome that attitude. Ask Him to help you to control your attitude. Ask for His power. Third, begin to think about Christ, His goodness, and His promises. Remember that God is greater than the circumstances that have led you to be in a bad mood. Remember the goodness and grace of God. The Bible says, choose to think of things that are lovely and pure instead of those things that create a negative attitude. It's in Philippians 4:8. Fourth, when you're in a bad mood, think about your testimony as a believer and realize that when you act out a bad mood, you're harming the cause of Christ. Fifth, think before you speak. Remember that when you're in a bad mood, your first inclination may not be good. Remember, James said in chapter 1, verse 9, you must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. 6, most of all, Make a decision that you're not going to let your emotions or your feelings control or dictate your actions. God is greater and you are stronger so that you do not have to let a temporary situation dictate how you're going to live and speak and react to people. Paul told Timothy in Romans 8:26 to remember that God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. He wrote in Romans 8:26 that God helps us in our weaknesses. God has the power to drive out the spirit of a bad mood or attitude. Today, don't be held hostage to your own thoughts or attitudes. Let the power of Christ help you rise above any attitude that wants to put you down. Here's a great thought for today, especially if you're in a bad mood. God is stronger than my feelings. And here's a prayer for us to finish with today. God, help me not to be a slave to how I feel. Help me rise above my feelings and live by the power you give me to be more than a conqueror. God bless you and be in a good mood today.